House, a social commentary talk show that addresses the state of affairs on Nevis. Expect great conversations, different perspectives, and an all-inclusive approach to moving Nevis forward. Tune in. It's time for us to speak up.
Good evening. Today is December 2nd, if I'm not mistaken, 2021. I am Jaedee Caines, and as always, I am here with Rohan, and we are here for another edition of Speak Up. Speak Up comes to you every Thursday night from the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, Vaughan Radio, 860 AM, 93.7 FM. You can also find us on Facebook, Vaughan Radio's Facebook page, as well as Vaughan Radio's YouTube channel. So if you have a friend or family member who may not be near a radio, you can encourage them to log on via the social media and be part of this half-hour program that comes to you every Thursday night. I'll go across the board and say good evening to my colleague Rohan. Good evening, Rohan.
Good evening, Jaedee. It is December. Second day in December, of course. The year goes by very quickly once you get past October. Night comes a lot faster. You can feel the winter chill that is in the air. It's a wonderful time to be alive. It's December. We have gone through another year, and so we continue to express our congratulations to those who are celebrating for whatever reason or whatever occasion, be it a birthday, anniversary, or just any significant milestone. Of course, if you're alive, you have had your longest streak of days on earth today, and so we that is something to celebrate. We continue to share condolences to those who are mourning. It is never easy to lose someone you love or to go through tragic circumstances, but we want you to know that our thoughts and our prayers are continually with you.
All right, sounds good. We have an exciting show lined up, but before we get into the details of tonight's show, I just want to encourage everyone to support the practice matches that are being hosted by the St. Kitts Nevis Netball Association, currently on the island of Nevis. In fact, the first match of a series of matches was played in Nevis on Tuesday, and so we have another match this evening taking place, or should have started already, at the Brownhill Sporting Complex. So after Speak Up, you can head on over to Brownhill and catch a piece of that match. Also on Saturday and Sunday we'll have 2 games each, if I'm not mistaken, and so I encourage persons to go out and just support the game of netball. It is something that I love dearly, and I just wanted to put that plug in. Rohan, in a few days the island of Nevis will hear the budget estimates for the year 2022, and I don't know how seriously some persons take this, because this week I had a conversation with someone and I asked them to reflect on budget 2021, and they couldn't even recall what were some of the major components of budget 2021. I know sometimes it's a lot and persons tend to tune out, but I think sometimes governments say these things are put over the content of the budget in such a way that it is intended to tune you out so that you don't really pay too much attention to what it is being said, so you have nothing to hold them accountable to. However, budget 2022 is around the corner, but I want us to this evening reflect a bit on budget 2021. What were some of the things that were discussed in budget 2021, and where are we with those elements of budget 2021? Rohan, what stands out to you?
Well, it's a good question. You know what I've recognized over the years, this government has used the ability to speak well, if I may say that, to provide barrels of emptiness. And 2021 was akin to that kind of activity. I mean, we can go to the budget. I suspect when we heard the budget for 2021, many people were looking to what could be provided and what would be provided and what would be done in the human element with regards to COVID-19, because, of course, that is the period we find ourselves in still. And so I can go back and I can reference one page there that it says this government or my government, as they like to say.
As they like to say.
I don't know if I'm saying this is their government, but another story for another time. Must have focused attention in 2021 on the security of food supply, health and well-being of our people, modernizing of the delivery of education, and economic diversification, among some other things like the provision of cleaner, cheaper energy. And when we look at what was said to what was done, stark contrast in delivery of what was said and the results therein. I take that to say there was also the mention of how the IMF projected 2021 in the face of global pandemic, and how growth was being retarded because of lesser right, you know, and we have always said, and it's important that we say that our struggles did not come at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic.
That is true.
The COVID-19 pandemic simply unmasked, funny isn't it? Because COVID caused us to wear masks. And in their situation, COVID unmasked the struggles that we were having as a people and as an economy. And what I found interesting is that the reference to the IMF, but there was no reference to what the leading agencies were saying about what should be done by government.
Okay.
I've said it time and time again that the government, that IMF and other leading agencies were saying, yes, we are in the global pandemic, but to get through the pandemic and to set your economies for recovery, there are some things you must do. And that was investment in education, innovation, technology, and to set your social safety nets in a manner that gives your people a kind of peace of mind and ease of mind, because what they were asking governments to do was to provide liquidity to families. When you look at their budget, they talk about reducing poverty. If you knew and you understand and you appreciated that there are levels of poverty in Nevis, then that very same idea that the IMF and the World Bank were putting forward to governments, why didn't you follow on with that? Why didn't you provide liquidity to those families so that they can get through the pandemic phase? We can shift and go to cleaner, cheaper energy, except for this slow crawling Wärtsilä engine that arrived recently. I know here we say that we don't contribute that much to the carbon footprint, and that is good, and we should be seeking to keep it that way. But when we are fancying to buy engine, generator after generator after generator, we are more inclined to be adding to the carbon footprints than subtracting or keeping a minimal contribution. And so I don't know how much is there, Jaedee. Maybe you can find something we can hold
our government
accountable to.
So Rohan, it's interesting that you mentioned the renewable energy initiative. So I want us to go there, but before we get there, Dr. Bartlett likes to talk about the fact that she did pretty well in math. Well, I was pretty good in English. And so I like to pay attention to what it is I read. And I am quoting from the budget address of last year and the budget estimates of, well, presented last year, but for the year 2021. And under the section Rebuilding Our Economy, we see lots of fancy words, fancy adjectives and adverbs to talk about what the government plans to do. So I see here that the government pledges to work steadfastly and diligently. No, I mean steadfastly and diligently, okay, to ensure that Nevis is set firmly on a path to recovery that is both sustainable and inclusive. Right then and there, I gather that you are already admitting that Nevis is not on a path. Nevis needs to be recovered, rather. Nevis is not on a stable path, because you're saying that you want to set us firmly on a path to recovery that is both sustainable and inclusive. Now let's talk about inclusivity for a second. How can we set Nevis or any place on a path that involves inclusivity if we, by the very nature of our actions, continue to marginalize people, continue to decide that okay, I am only going to move forward with the plans and projects that are of my government, that are of my party, because the government doesn't really belong to anybody, that are of my party, and totally dismiss the ideas and the concerns of persons who support or who even appear to support the other side. So right then and there, we're not talking about inclusivity. And then on the matter of sustainability, you just hit the nail on the head. We're talking about the need to be more sustainable and our role in terms of the carbon footprint. But I mean, look at what it is we're doing. But let's continue. We also say that the government will continue, which it hasn't started, to implement timely, targeted and balanced fiscal policies to support our recovery in our quest to build resilience, stimulate sustainable growth, and ensure an entrenched culture of inclusion. My people, I need us to start paying attention to these things. It is not a song and dance. It is not a concert. It is not the event that you're waiting for all year where you save up your best suit for. That is not what the budget is about. It's about telling the people what you plan to do in the ensuing year. And it is our responsibility as citizens and residents of Nevis to pay keen attention. Even if you're not able to listen to the budget in its entirety, you should get a copy. It's available online, it's available in hard copy, and peruse it for yourself. And these are the things that we need to hold our government accountable to, because they are the ones who would have said that this is what they will do. All right. Of course, there is mention of the pandemic and how it has impacted the economy, and I don't blame the government at all for mentioning that, but to put the blame squarely at the feet of the pandemic, I totally disagree with. But let's move on. There is mention here, and I quote, "We will continue our efforts at renewable energy development, especially the exploration of geothermal energy, as we believe that this cheaper, cleaner source of energy can be the catalyst to propel our economy forward over the long term." I am not making up any words. I am reading from a document that was prepared and presented by the current Nevis Island administration. They talk about their plans in 2021 to pursue renewable energy development. People of Nevis, tell me, what have you seen in the year 2021 to support this claim about renewable energy?
Anything that would suggest that they are going to move in that direction. We saw clearly what the direction of this government is going to be medium term, if we may get there. You know what I noticed really in this, there's quite a bit of use of the root word inclusive in this budget. Inclusion, inclusivity, inclusive. But yet the actions of certain individuals in this government suggest completely otherwise. Whether it's economically, whether it is socially, they're just not an inclusive government to start with. There was the health and well-being of our people was paramount in the 2020 budget.
Correct.
Yet the building remains unfinished. You know what I noticed the Premier has done though, is that he has shifted his terminology, and he's now referencing the facility as a new hospital.
Oh really?
Yeah, that is what he said the last time the cabinet toured the facility. New hospital, and I smiled to myself. I say I know what you're trying to do with this, and so we said one thing in 2020. In 2021, we're still hoping, and now we have been given a deadline of 2022, and 2022 things are going to change.
Rohan, I have an issue. Yes, if things come up, and you also say that things come up, and that is what I have an issue with. It's like we sit on the information, and when someone asks, it's like you feel as if it's an attack, and that has been the premise of this administration all the way around. Abba no better than Saba. That has been the premise. That has been how we operate. As a matter of fact, it was said here that discussions with the financiers are finally at an end stage, And we are optimistic that this is now the time for the realization of the promise of geothermal energy. Those are not Jaedee Caines' words. Those are not Jaedee Caines' words, my people. It is time for us to hold our governments accountable. You understand? And I want to say this here. Yes, we can talk about what the government is not doing, because trust me, there's a long list of what the government is not doing.
Point.
But I think it is important for me to interject the difference between the current administration and an NRP administration, and what this NRP slate of candidates wants to do if elected to government. And this whole notion of inclusivity will not just be a notion, because we've said time and time again, and I can speak for myself because everyone is grown, so let them speak for themselves, even though I've heard them say time and time again, and I know the people I'm affiliated with. But I will speak for myself, and I've said time and time again that it is not the agenda of an NRP-led administration to be separating or segregating our people. We maintain that everybody must eat. We maintain that it's a Nevis for all of us. Whether you were born here or you've made Nevis your home, it's a Nevis for all of us. And there will be opportunities. So even the ministers of government, the current ministers of government who will no longer be in government, because it is not our intention to push division and have people, neighbors not speaking because you have blue clothes on your line and I have green, you know. And so it is important for us to keep pushing that, because it is the premise of this NRP slate of candidates, this new NRP. And when I say new, I don't mean like the new hospital that one is referencing. I am saying that these are not, this is not the way that an NRP-led administration will function. So Rohan, you've mentioned and I've mentioned, so many things that were promised that weren't delivered. Even though I still maintain that our budget presentations over the past few years have been like a play on words and a kind of dance around the issue. In instances where we have actually listed an issue and said this is what we are going to do, we have failed miserably in most cases. But in other cases, we continue to dance around. And Rohan and I will be back to talk more about, some of these things. But we can't ignore the fact that budget is coming up. The new budget debate is coming up. Rohan, do you think that anything that you have there that was mentioned last year for this year will be back in the next budget? What are your thoughts?
I suspect all of them will be back. And I suspect what is going to happen is that we are going to get a more heightened presentation and the play of words, and you're going to see a direct effort to pull at the heartstrings of divisions, because they're going to try to seek to evoke some emotions of things happening. So what you're going to happen, you're going to get what I term a hot air balloon effect. You have the issues of food security, and so you're going to hear of how we produce tons and tons of food during the COVID. What people need to do is to ask, well, what happened prior to COVID? Because if you produce 1,000, let's say a ton of potatoes in 2019, and then during COVID, because of the situation and more people began to do backyard farming, you're producing a 20 ton. That is significant. Isn't that the numbers you should really be producing yearly if you're talking about food security? But that is what is going to happen, and you're going to hear how we gave fishermen and farmers XYZ, and how we're at this wonderful level.
Well, I just can't take on when y'all start to talk about agriculture, because when I listen to persons talk about agriculture in the house, I wonder if they know what it is they're talking about. You listen, as somebody who is into English, you can tell when somebody is reading words that were prepared by someone else. I mean, you are just simply calling the words because it doesn't make sense. I mean, I do this all the time with my 8-year-old. I mean, it's all well and good for you to call the words, but if you can't tell me what it is you're saying, you need to go back over wheel and come again. And that is what happens. I listen to persons talk about agriculture, and the only thing that sound like they show about is when they say onions and potatoes.
Onions and potatoes.
Onions and potatoes.
We can have stories about onions and potatoes, you know, of how we have lost crops here and there because of whatever reason. But I'm just saying that you're going to have that heightened sense of what they would want to say are positive activities. I'm not diminishing the activity itself, but the yields in terms of what should have been happening constantly isn't happening. We're going to hear of how we have done so well in the transition to online learning in the whole scheme of modernizing delivery of education. But yet there are people who still can't access online platforms because they don't have devices, they don't have steady internet services. We have not done anything to remediate, to fix the situation that we walked into. I mean, not fault of our own, but we are saying these are the things we are going to do. Yet we have not sought to provide any policy direction or any physical space or any space at all for providers of these services to say, listen, we can provide a higher bandwidth in this regard because students are online, and if you have so many students online, what can be the keys? That has not happened. We have not seen any position that says, listen, we have government-made arrangements and partnerships with a Dell, an IBM, a Lenovo, an Acer, an Apple, that is going to allow us now to provide devices for our students going forward. We haven't seen that, but you're going to hear how we have done wonderfully well.
But then, so let's say the claim is that we've done wonderfully well. I'm asking you, what do you think should be part of the education component, at least for this year? We're not talking long term, we're just talking about the year coming up, the spring year.
We have got to, what is fundamental now and what for me should happen is that we now recognize this. We can function face to face and we can function on an online platform. How do we now structure our schools or delivery system in a manner that allows us to maximize face to face and maximize online? What do we do? We have had long conversations about how do we restructure schedules and move extracurricular activities to the afternoon. We now have an opportunity to do that, but we have got to provide the necessary infrastructure. We have got to strengthen the platform. We have got to secure the platform, because I understand that on these current platforms somebody in St. Kitts can access somebody needs thing.
It is very open. It is very wide.
And so we have got to look at ways to motivate our teachers, to have our teachers become more part of the process rather than telling our teachers this is what they have to do, this is what they ought to do. Teachers understand. They are the ones on the front line.
Because you actually were saying something that kind of answers a question that I'm seeing here. Someone said, instead of criticizing, I would like to know what's the new NRP's plans, please. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. You tuned in late, and so you would have missed when we said that this is what we've seen that is wrong, and we are countering. So we are not just saying what we are seeing is wrong, and it's not, we're not just saying what we think is wrong. We are, in every instance, we are offering counter. So if you missed that, you can always go back, but you can. We invite you to listen to us going forward as we continue to do that. But I found it important to stop Rohan so that you understand that is exactly what we are here doing right now. So Rohan, you mentioned education, and you hit some really, really good points there. Now, I am wondering why we are still right now doing a hybrid approach to school in the secondary school. I am really wondering. Don't get me wrong. I am all for ensuring that we can master both. I am all for it. And guess what? We can all master both in a physical environment, in a physical space, because you can walk with your devices and you can have your tests and stuff done. So I am all for that. However, it really bothers me as a parent to see children who are attached to the secondary school on the road when I know they have classes. And the reason why I can say I know they have classes, because even if they don't have physical school, they have online school. And so it bothers me, because I'm saying, if these children are not in online school or physical school, they're just out there. What happens to their grades? What will they be taking home to their parents? And is it a case that you have to suffer because you don't have a device? So if that is the case, I mean, yes, I understand that the government cannot do everything, but we have created this situation. We created this situation by saying, listen, we are not going to put all of the secondary school students in school at the same time. We are going to do a hybrid approach. And so if that is what we've created, what are we doing now that we realize that it does not work for all? I mean, isn't there something that speaks to the fact that children are supposed to be educated?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, what are we doing there?
We are signed on to those conventions. I think between 0 and 16 there's, education opportunities. But, Jaedee made a point which is critical in when we get to the stage where we can, move away from, all the restrictions of COVID and using the hybrid, that we don't just go back to the face-to-face only. That we move to integrate how we impart and how we deliver information to our students. And you rightfully said, we want to get to the stage where teachers can use technology to their advantage and to the advantage of our students' learning abilities.
Yes.
Because you have children who are technically far more advanced than the teacher themselves.
Correct.
How do we ensure that they are not, just sitting down on the skills they have? And so that is, listen, and the funny thing is, Jaedee, these are conversations teachers have been having long before COVID.
Yes.
You hear them talk about the whiteboards, and I've seen that we've given them whiteboards, but those are not the whiteboards they were referring to. They were referring to the technological advances that allows them to send information from the whiteboard to the laptops and the tablets, and have children execute the activities and send them back. I don't see why we can't get to that place, and as you rightfully said, we don't want, not criticizing, I try to use the word highlighting, and we continue to highlight deficiencies.
But Rohan, even if it comes down to us having to criticize, that's what it is. It is what it is. People want you to dance around and say that this table here is blue and it's green. I mean, come on, you call a spade a spade. Now, I want to say something here, because we are winding down, but I love to talk to you especially about education, because I know that's something you're passionate about. Same thing goes for me. And I just feel that one of the problems that we have on the island of Nevis is that there is no connect between and among our ministries. So, for example, we are here looking at moving forward in education. I mean, are we ensuring that we really integrate the IT department, not just to come and say, okay, this is what we want to do, and then they set it up. Have them part of the discussion to see what all we can do. What are some of the things we can achieve? If we want to push, because I realize after we applied some pressure, the Premier is talking about encouraging persons to get into nursing. Pressure bust pipe, that's okay. And so that is good, but it's all well and good to say we are encouraging people to get into nursing. What are we doing to ensure that happens? And so I'm saying we need to integrate these things. Do we have the nurses, the representative from the nursing fraternity talking about how we can reach the children, have them start to develop an interest in nursing at a young age? What are we doing? So I'm saying that under an NRP-led administration, there will be more integration. And that happens when you have people who are trained across the board. Politics, yes, it should be about people who people like, and that is great. But at the end of the day, the people you like have to go in there and work, mind you. So don't just elect somebody because you like them. Don't just elect me because I'm cute. I know I am. You have to understand that I have to go in there and do the work. So you want to make sure that the cute girl can do the work. And that is one of the things that we are having an issue with. Rohan, your final word.
You're so right in terms of integration, and as you were speaking, I'm saying, yes, that is what That is the level of inclusivity we are talking about.
Yes.
We are not simply trying to, and that is the model of governance. And tonight is one of those nights I wish we had now, because there's so much to talk about, and I see a lot of governance this and governance that, and it is nothing close to what governance really should be.
Correct.
What you're speaking about is governance. That ground up approach rather than that top down. That is inclusivity. And I'm hoping, Jaedee, out of this pandemic and in the budget coming, that we are going to hear what is next for education.
Yes.
That somebody was taking notes in all of what was happening during the year, and they are going to say, this is what is happening. Jaedee, I'll close with this. Some people are worried about winning the next election. Our focus has got to be what happens to the generations after the next election.
Amen. I couldn't end it any better. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to Speak Up. We'll be here next week, Thursday. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Join Jaedee Caines and Rohan this and every Thursday on the Caribbean's powerhouse, Von Radio, for Speak Up, a social commentary talk show that addresses the state of affairs on Nevis. Expect great conversations, different perspectives, and an all-inclusive approach to moving Nevis forward. Tune in. It's time for us to speak up.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or